Hey guys, welcome back to the course Spring Boot. This is lecture 4, adding a REST controller to Spring Boot application. So far we have built a Spring Boot application and we had it running on a servlet container, but it doesn't do any good. When we made a HTTP request on this URL, we were getting an error page as a response from our application. So in this lecture we're gonna fix this error, and we are expecting some response instead of this error page, which will be a string response initially, and later we will return an object as a response to this URL when you made a HTTP request on this URL through our application. So to fix this thing, our application needs a controller. So let's have a look what controller is. Controller is nothing but a Java class which is marked with some annotation which tells the Spring that this is a controller class, and it has information about the URL which is we're gonna access, and this URL is gonna trigger a method which is also defined in this controller, that which method is gonna executed when this request is made with the given URL. So let's begin and add a controller to your project. So this is our package, and we have this class state API which is having a main method which is running our Spring Boot application, and we're gonna add a new class over here which will be a controller. So I'll just name it a states controller and just click on finish. You have a state controller. Now we have a plain class over here which needs to be act as a controller. So to define it as a controller, we need to annotate it with the REST controller, which will tell the Spring that this is a controller for our application. And remember, I told you that it's gonna have a method which will be executed, and for now I'm returning a string. Let's name this get all states. So the aim is whenever you hit the state URL, you should get a list of all state, but for now I will just return a string to see if it is working fine or not. So let's type some message, welcome to states API, and this method should have a URL mapping, that which URL is gonna trigger this method when it comes to controller. So to do that, we have an annotation which is called request mapping, and it takes parameters which is a HTTP verb, that which method is gonna trigger this, but by default we have a get request, so I'm not defining it. I'm just defining the URL which is gonna redirect to this method. So let's import from where this annotation is coming, and this is coming from request mapping and REST controller. So this is all done. Let me explain you how this controller is linked to our project. Remember, I told you that what Spring does is it scans through the classes and looks for the annotation. So we have this state controller.java in our main source main Java. So whenever the Spring Boot is gonna start, it's gonna scan all the classes. So it's automatically gonna go to this REST controller, and it will know that state controller is a controller, and it will treat this entity as if it is a controller, and then see the URL mapping and redirect it to this method. So this is it. Let's give it a try and run our application and see if the states request gives you the response, which is this message. So let's run this and go back to our application is running probably now, yeah, and reload this page, and here's the response: welcome to the states API. So what is happening, I'll just brief it one more time, that this is the states URL that we had defined in our controller, that whenever this URL is gonna get hit with a GET request, we need to return a message which is written in here. So this controller is handling a HTTP request which is coming to this URL states, and it is executing get all states method, which is returning the string that we have defined in this method. But our aim is to return the list of states, right? So in next lecture we will be returning a object instead of a string whenever you made a request on this resource, which is /states. Alright, so see you guys in the next lecture. Thank you so much. Have a good day.